live in a large, four-dimensional place called space-time. Your location is determined by 3 coordinates, and your place in time is identified by a single number, t. But here on Earth, things are a bit more complicated. We use a date to determine the day, and a time to specify a point during that day. Once we colonize our solar system, a better system will be required. Until then, we must continue to work with dates and times. Python takes pity on us Earthlings and gives us a variety of classes for working with clocks and calendars. So put on your fancy pants, because we have a date with time. All of the classes we will discuss today live inside the datetime module. So first things first, import the datetime module. Let's see what is inside this module by printing its directory. This module contains a date class, a time class, and a datetime class. The date class is for working with days. The time class is for times. And the datetime class is a combination of both the date and time classes. It is a fully featured class that gives you everything you need to specify a precise moment in time. Let's first learn about the date class. It's always a good idea to look at the help text before using a new class. We see that Python's date class will support all dates from the year 1 up until the year 9999. So any code we write should last for quite a while. I will wager 3 Bitcoin that human-computer hybrids will be using a new language in the year 10,000. If you scroll to the top of the help text, you will see how to create a date object. To make a date, you pass in 3 numbers: the year, the month, and the day. Let's make a date called GVR, with the date January 31st, 1956. This is the birthday of Guido van Rossum, the creator of Python. If you print GVR, you can see the date was created successfully, and you can access the year, month, and day separately. The datetime module contains a class called timeDelta, which lets you add or subtract a number of days from a date. For example, let Mill be January 1st, 2000, a day when people behaved in an odd and superstitious manner. Let's assume that it took 100 days for people to return to normal. What date would that be? To find out, create a timeDelta object and pass in the number of days. A positive number will increase the date, and a negative number will decrease the date. If you print the sum, you see that April 10th, 2000 was 100 days after Crazy Day. Did you notice that by default, Python displays dates in year-month-day format? But you can specify a different format if you like. To do so, you must create a format code. There are more than 20 different codes for you to choose from when specifying a format for a date or time. As an example, suppose we want to display the full name of the day, followed by the full name of the month, the day number, then the year. There are 2 ways you can print a date in this format. The old way is to call the strftime method on a date. Then you pass in the format string using the available codes. Here the codes are %A for the full name of the day, %B for the full name of the month, %D for the day of the month, and %Y for the 4-digit year. Be careful when typing the code. It is case sensitive. That is a nice looking date. A more modern way of doing this is to create a string with the format. You can enter any text that you like, but when you are ready to enter the date pattern, start with an open brace followed by a colon. Now you can print this message. To do this, call the format method and pass in the date, time, or datetime object. That is indeed a well-formatted message. Let us now return to the datetime module. Inside this module are 3 key classes: date, time, and datetime. We will now create objects using all 3 of these classes. SpaceX first launched a reused rocket on March 30th, 2017 at 22:27 UTC. We can create a launch date object using the date class. The 3 arguments are year, month, and day. To create a launch time, we will use the time class. Here, the 3 arguments are hours, minutes, and seconds. And finally, we can create an object with both the date and time using the datetime class. The first 3 arguments are the year, month, and day, and the next 3 arguments are the hour, minutes, and seconds. Let's now print all 3 objects to see how they differ from one another. Print the date, the time, then the datetime. You can see that the launch date only contains date information. The launch time only contains time information. And the launch date time contains everything. Just like date objects, a time object gives you access to the individual components. You can access the hour, the minute, and the second. As you might suspect, the launch datetime object gives you access to the date and time components separately. You can access the year, month, day, hour, minute, and second. Another common problem is to access the current datetime. The datetime class has a method called today for just this purpose. To get the current datetime in UTC format, type the module datetime, the class datetime, and then call the method today. If you print the datetime, you will get the exact date and time you ran the code on your computer. But what's this? After the second, there's a fractional value. Did I mention that the datetime class can store times down to the microsecond? It's not like me to forget. You can access the microseconds just like the other datetime components. That's some serious precision. Another common task is to take a string representation of a datetime and convert it into a datetime object. For example, let's convert the string of the date when a human first walked on the moon into a datetime object. To do this, we will use a method on the datetime class called strpTime, which is an abbreviation for string parse time. This method name is unfortunate, since it is used to parse both dates and times. I would have called it parse string, but nobody asked me. When you call this method, the first argument is the string containing the date. The second argument is the expected format. We use the same datetime patterns as before. If you print this object, Python will display the value in a standard datetime format. But it is, in fact, an object, not a string. As proof, print the type for this object. This is indeed an instance of the datetime class in the datetime module. The datetime module contains a class called timeDelta, which can store the difference between two datetimes. It can also be used to add or subtract an interval of time to another datetime object. We at Socratica are working hard to shrink the time delta between our videos. How can you help? By implanting the need to watch our videos into the minds of others. Subtle persuasion. That's all I demand.